So painting wet on wet, that means using wet paint on wet paper, and painting wet on dry, just wet paint on dry paper, are both important ways of painting with watercolors and useful, and they have very different techniques. So let's see if you can spot them in the next slides. So where did the artist use wet on wet in this painting? Can you think about where? And where did the artist use wet on dry? Yeah, you're right. The fuzzy areas right here, those are painted wet on wet. When the paper was still wet, the artist put down the color. And oh my goodness, look how detailed these roosters are. Well, this rooster. And it's painted wet on dry. So the artist made sure to let the paper dry before putting those details on. How about here? Where did the artist use wet on wet? You're right. Yep, right up here in the sky. The artist wet the paper and then put the colors on, and having it that way allowed the colors to blend together really nicely without having any brush strokes. So where did they use wet on dry? Yes, you're right. Right here in these trees. They're quite dry. But these trees, yep, those ones off in the distance, those were painted wet on wet. Very nice. Let's take a look at another one. How about here? Where did the artist use wet on wet? Yes, right around the edges. Those were painted wet on wet. And the center iris was painted wet on dry. So the artist made sure to be patient and let the paper dry before painting that iris. Otherwise, all those really nice details would have been lost. They would have become fuzzy like these. So you guys are now going to be starting your watercolor of a sky. And don't worry if you're at home and you don't have paints at all, that's fine. You can color this part of the project. So you're just going to make the sky today. And if you have a little bit of time, we'll make the ground, but I don't want you to add anything else into it today. We're going to do that next class when our watercolor paper is dry. And same with students at home using other materials. So here are the steps for this project. The first step, when you get your watercolors, you're going to moisten those paints first. That way the water can soak in and make them soft. The second step, you're going to draw the horizon line and put that in like a little bit below the middle, okay? But leave plenty of space above for the sky. Third step, write your name on the back. Super important. 4, using your fingers, dipping them in the water. You can wet the paper, the back of the paper. Step 5, using fingers, make the sky shiny with water. So use lots of water so it's kind of pooling up on that watercolor paper. But make sure not to be a rub monster. As you put that water on, don't over rub it, because if you do that, that watercolor lift won't work. Okay? Then you're ready to paint your sky with color. So have fun with that. But again, as you put that color down, about 1, 2, 3 strokes. Miss Shaw's at home with a barking dog. So when you put that color down on there, remember about 3 swipes with color, and then load up on some new color, because if you keep rubbing it, you're going to scrub that paint into the watercolor paper and that lift won't work so well. So paint that sky. When you're done with it, step 7 is lift out the clouds with a tissue, okay? That could be a Kleenex, it could be toilet paper, but something absorbent, a paper towel for instance. All right, have fun!